Good evening. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you, as usual, from the Pinos Palace in the Xtreme Studios. I'm just west of Orlando, Florida. And I have also from the Central Florida area, the young 20-something Professor Picks with me, joining me for a very special presentation, our James Bond stream. And what we do, ladies and gentlemen, especially for your new listeners, is we normally, Professor Pixel and I, do what we call Extreme TV, where we go through season one of a particular show. Sometimes we'll go into season two, depending on how good it is or reception. And in between going from one season to another show, we fill in a James Bond movie and we go in order. So we started all the way back with Dr. No in 1962, who, by the way, Pixel, it turns out some work associate of mine is best buddies with the grandson of one of the first guys that ever got whacked in a James Bond movie, Strangeways, Professor Strangeways. Yes, sir. I will share that story offline. I found some information out today. But yeah, we've gone from Dr. No all the way up to Timothy Dalton now in 1980. Was it 9? 85? No, it's not 85. It's 89, I believe, right? License to Kill. The second. This is late 80s, turning the 90s. Bond's changed to Timothy Dalton, who felt he was too young for the role earlier, auditioned for it now, got it. It would be his last film, actually, because of some issues that James Bond would go through for some time until it transitioned to another actor, Pierce Brosnan, who probably later this year we'll get into doing. But I wanted to ask you, I'm very familiar with this film. I think it's an all-time great James Bond one, certainly the best of these two Daltons to me. I want to know what your initial take is, and of course, let the audience know, is this a first watch for you?
It is a first watch for me, and I absolutely agree. This is phenomenal. I watched it twice.
I will tell you that the only thing at the beginning that's slightly to me is I do hold Bond to a high standard in terms of the opening song. The opening song here is not bad, but it's not memorable like the way some of them can be. But that's a hint of what things are going to come here. So let you expound on it and then take us into the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, let's go into the opening gambit, and then we'll talk about the intro. Opening gambit, Felix Leiter is getting married, and James Bond is apparently his best man, ready to holding the rings, ready as they're having a wedding down in Key West. However, the DEA is preparing to capture a drug lord, and what do? They go ahead in a helicopter and put a "Follow Me" sign to Leiter, who's just about to get married. He's like 10 minutes away from it. And what do? Of course, they follow. They get out and they're going to go ahead and hop on the helicopter. Leiter asks Bond, "Oh, apologize to Della for me." And Bond, of course, says, "No, I'm coming with you." And they quickly go on up, and the race is on.
Where are they getting married, sir?
Key West.
Which is where, sir?
Right here in Florida.
That's right. South Florida, ladies and gentlemen. Filmed on location. This is some great action work here. What happens when they follow the helicopter sign en route to that? What do we see happening?
So they go ahead and they're trying to capture him. It basically goes into the drug lord hopping into a plane, trying to fly away. He's his girlfriend is cheating on him, but he doesn't really care about that. It's more about possessing her than anything. So he has the guy killed and says, "Oh, don't worry, I forgive you. Come on." And
what does he do to her? Do you remember what he does to her?
Oh, yes, he whips her. It's not a belt. It doesn't look like it's belt, at least. It looks like he grabs an actual whip and just...
It's a special kind of one. There's definitely some strong sexual undertones here that they don't really dive into. And so if you're into that certain world of kink, this might open your eyes to saying this is going to be a bit of a different James Bond movie. They really laid back. I'm not joking. They really laid back on here because think about it. Somebody's getting married. She's obviously wearing her virginal white dress and all that. And of course, everything happens here too. Yeah, totally different than the action scene in his last movie we saw here too, because he's got to get some work done. This is a very toned down opening gambit relative to the bombastic stuff we've seen before.
I really love this opening gambit because it just feels it is a part of the movie. It's absolutely essential. It's not Sometimes we've had random ones, and sometimes something that's related but not directly involving Bond at that moment. This has Bond right in the action. They capture the drug lord, and it seems like it's going to be an easy mission. I mean, other than the fact that he hops down from the helicopter as the drug lord's flying away, and they wrap the cord around the plane. Let's go fishing, and they pick it up by its tail. And where do they end up? Right over the wedding, where Leiter and Bond can then parachute down and get him married.
Yeah, it's subdued in the sense that it's in Florida. It's in the United States. It's not like, some special, unique mountaintop around the world that nobody has a chance to go to. So this is a very like pedestrian kind of opening in that it's very like relatable, because if you're in Florida, most people have been to the Keys, and it's going to play a significant factor in this movie. I think that we'll talk about here shortly. What I really like about here too is because, like I say, if you're used to Bond being bombastic and everything else there too, you might go, wow, they really changed Roger Moore into a different direction with For Your Eyes Only being more about revenge. And you go, this kind of reminds you of that, because then of course, you had Octopussy and the fifth one after that you go, well, they just went back to the old formula. Here with Timothy Dalton, I go, this is, to me, in a way, I wish that he would have started out playing this Bond for two roles. And I think there was a concerted effort here about his presentation, because I think he's definitely grown in the way he wants to portray it and all that. And it's nice too, he's he gets a nice little special gift. He gets the old school hand lighter that has, a little message engraved into it and all that too. But things don't seem to go well too, because the guys that are after the bad dude, they're transporting him in en route. What I liked about Robert Davi in here from the Goonies, that guy, is that he's very calm, he's very composed, he's not smug, he's not over the top, he's not whatever that you go, yeah, whatever. And I would tell you, Thunderball was really at the time cutting edge with all the underwater stuff that they did, and they made sure to make that a key part of this movie. This movie is involved in the Keys and water a little bit too, but the whole stunt work here of the van going off in the water and him getting rescued, and the fact that yes, he had $1 million bounty, and he's realized like I'll up it to 2 or whatever like that. You're like, this guy's got some balls. But you see how he acts under pressure and his henchmen, and how loyalty is a very important thing to him. And so what does he do? He ends up capturing Leiter and all that, who kind of gruesomely gets put down there. Wait. It's really good stuff here to introduce Robert Davi to everybody.
Now I need to pause, because after that opening gambit, we get the intro. The intro, it's not the best. But it's very entertaining. And I actually really like the song. Like, I don't think it's one of the best, but it's definitely up there in terms of the mid-tier songs that we've received in the last few. But yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. License to Kill. Coming straight for your heart. It's cheesy.
That would be the adult-oriented kind of R&B stuff that was really popular in the 80s for quite some time. Seriously.
But
it's not bad. It's not bad. It's just, the point of it is, it's all this movie so far is definitely an intentional level, not over the top that we've gotten used to.
But see, that's one of the reasons for me, On Her Majesty's Secret Service is, it's one of my favorite films. It feels connected. And getting into what happens to Leiter, yeah, he gets captured. They pull him down into a great white shark pit and eat chunks of him, but they don't let it eat all of him. They pull him out, and they end up throwing him back into his home with his wife, now unfortunately dead. And this lights a fire within Bond. He's like, right on the mission. He starts investigating the aquarium. Do you know who we have in this movie, though?
There's many. Who are you referring to?
A certain fellow that we may have seen in a small town somewhere.
Give it to me. Talk to me.
Oh crap! I'm drawing a blank on his name in the show.
There you go.
Twin Peaks.
I'm not recognized. Oh,
Ed!
Ed, who owns the gas station. Yes, this is Ed.
Ed is in here, and he is corrupt as can be.
He is.
And
he's on the inside of that, and he's the one that kind of helped him escape so he could collect his bounty, which he does get.
Yes, that's true. And you know what? He ends up right with that money when Bond pretty much shows him the sharks. And then we get our one of our main Bond girls in the film. The other one is like a slight Bond girl, but it's really
there's definitely two.
The second one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Carey Lowell is Pam Bouvier.
I'm going to go on record right now before we go through the rest of the film here, is that these women are absolutely 100% stunning. The one that gets whipped in this one, I mean, just it's absolutely insane just how incredibly gorgeous both these women are, and they're not dipshits like they've been in previous Bond movies at all. It really is. It's really, I talked about how much I enjoyed seeing in For Your Eyes Only the daughter of the guy that got murdered that was doing some work for them, how she ends up getting involved, with Roger Moore at the time too, with the crossbow, Melina Havelock. And so she was a competent female person there. She wasn't there just to be a lay and just to be sexy and walk around in a bikini. It wasn't like that. Same thing happens in here, even though they're very classy with some of their dresses. Just phenomenal here. I tell you, if you haven't seen this, or if you've only seen it, it's not been a long time, it's definitely a different tone, because they get to the point here where Bond's kind of checked this place out. He realizes some bad shit's going on. He's putting his hands in the maggots, throwing at the dude. The dude's dying. You're like, okay, they're not like putting the bomb up your ass and blowing you up like Denzel Washington would do or something like that. But they meet at the Hemingway house, which has all the cats and everything all there too. And basically they're like, Bond, we're not a country club. You can't just fucking quit. And so Bond's like, okay, well, that's fine. He's like, he can't believe Bond's quitting, and he just jumps off of it, runs off, and they're basically going to kill his ass for running away and not getting turned in. I really like this a lot, because you always got the feeling through the whole generation of Bond films here that he was just in on it. There was no issues. There's no idea of it. You never got the sense of you're just working for the man. You got a sense of that whole patriotic bit of, MI6 and OSS and all that other kind of stuff that Fleming himself originally was involved in, as well as other British actors at some point there too in the war. Here you go. Yeah, you work for the government, but they'll fuck you if you don't do what they say. And I like that, because it really, like I say, adds a sense of realism to it. Here he's not doing a bunch of stupid ass crazy stunts or CGI. They've literally filmed it there in the Key West, so there's just an air of authenticity too about it. As we've talked about some movies too, it really, really kind of comes across to it. So really good stuff here.
Yeah, no, I've been to the Hemingway house.
Yes.
I love if you go into the back, you've seen the penny, right?
Yep.
His last red scent, and they're not making it anymore, so keep your eyes out for it. But yeah, no, the thing is, it's not just that they're going, when he says, I'm going to quit, I'm done, and M is kind of forced to say, okay, well, the statute, the secrets, and then he spots the person in the background that's going to kill him because he's resigning. It's not just because he's running away. When he goes ahead and he goes running from his own people, he has to kind of be on his own for right now. That's fine though. He manages to steal, just $5 million.
Yeah, it's cocaine money and sharks. I mean, classic Florida stuff. Nothing, no surprise, no grandiose world plans or like that. Very down to earth. And he sneaks onto the boat. He meets a lady in red, as I like to call her, because that red dress, she's just absolutely stunning. The one that likes to get whipped and cheats around and all that, and doesn't seem to mind being kept. But it's its own interesting subplot. And then, of course, he gets shot at. There's some plane foo or whatever like that. It's really not over the top in terms of what we've gotten accustomed to, where we just go, oh, this is kind of farcical and all that. It's kind of cool, but kind of whatever. And then, when he meets Bond girl number 2, they're in a little kind of a shithole rundown shanty, as I would like to say there too, a little place and all that. At first, I thought, oh, she's going to be a weak Bond girl, but she totally proves me wrong with it, because the whole premise of this movie is that Bond is out on his own. He has to rely on help, but what is he going to do? he's going to infiltrate into Sanchez's band by basically saying, you know what, I'm not going to lie about my situation here. I'm MI6, licensed, revoked, killed. I'm down here. I'm looking for some jobs. So it's interesting because it's like having flip sides of the same kind of personality where you could, this is one of the few times in a Bond movie or any of these kind of movies where you can sit there and go, you know, you really can see how the bad guy and Bond are very similar. It's a question of how to present it, because Davi takes a totally different way of what it means to be in charge like he is. He values loyalty. Bond does some stuff to kind of prove his loyalty to him. And
including setting up a guy that he really feels the pressure on later.
Yeah. To me, once we get through this first act, like I say, if you're like, man, what the fuck is wrong with this Bond movie? When's it going to pick up? Then all the things that they're doing are just lost on you as far as how it changes. And I admit, it's for a second film of somebody being a Bond actor, you're going to think, wow, is it different? Because kind of stepping back here for a moment, a lot of people like to think Connery is the physical Bond. He's the first one. So he gets some credit for that, bodybuilder guy. Then you get the last one, Daniel Craig, who's a physical Bond, but a different kind of blunt force trauma, Jason Bourne-ish, you know, zero charisma kind of guy. Then you got Pierce Brosnan, who's like Roger Moore 2.0 hybrid with him and that. So the best of both worlds, but also the worst. Kind of a prissy kind of prima donna who looks good in the suit and can be kind of smooth, but you don't know if you believe him 100% with the other. You have Roger Moore, who was the longest Bond, had the most films, kind of, you know, a bit of a goof. His movies are a bit uneven, but for some reason he's the most fun of all the Bonds. He's the Bond that makes you want to be Bond. Then you got this Shakespearean trained guy, Timothy Dalton, who's like, well, how is he going to be different? Well, he's going to portray Bond, the character Bond, a lot more like what the novels are, even if this particular story is not really based off of a lot. So it totally is a different approach, even from his last movie. And that's about one of the only gripes some people I know had about the film. Otherwise, if you're really a Bond purist and you've watched them all like that, you go, oh, they can do this and be successful. This is the way they're going. This is great. We don't have to worry about freaking laser beams in outer space and all sorts of stupid ass jungle screaming and stupid shit like that to have a laugh and go, you know, we can dial it down a little bit and still have a very good film. So to me, halfway through this film, I'm totally on board. I'm loving a lot of what they're doing here. I don't know where you're at in this, but I'm curious to hear, like I say, on the first watch, what you were feeling at this point.
I'm adoring it. Everything, like you're saying, these are some beautiful, some of the best Bond girls we've had. We have Bond, who I'm enjoying his performance all the way through. He has the little quips that he could give, and that's great. But it doesn't feel like it's too over the top, you know? Mm-hmm. And I love the feel of it because, again, this is a personal mission for Bond. When he goes to assassinate him, because that's what he does after after he goes ahead, fools around in the casino and makes the lady in red, Lupe, take him up to meet Sanchez. And it seems like he's going to get a chance to assassinate him, but he's stopped by agents from Hong Kong that have been trying to get him. But this actually helps Bond because even though he failed to assassinate him, we have him captured, and you go ahead and you meet the other MI agent who is saying, no, we're going to just ship you back to London before you can cause any more trouble. And they're about to knock him out when the guard comes in, blows him out. And what do they find? They find Bond bound and passed out. And this, in Sanchez's mind, goes ahead and gives him some credibility. Brings him to his luxurious place, all that white everywhere. Mm-hmm. And Bond is trying to just go ahead and get away. Lupe wants to say, no, he said stay. You're going to get us both killed. Helps him escape, though, because he has to go ahead and then set up one of the leads. This kind of smarmy guy. Reminds me of, remember Cliff from Cheers?
Yeah, I do, actually.
Yeah. He has that look about him. So a skeevy Cliff goes ahead and he sets him up. He takes the money out of the bank, puts it into this air pressure unit. I'm trying to remember.
Decompression chamber.
Thank you.
Yeah, when you come up too fast when you're diving, the pressure in the water changes quicker than your body's ability to adjust. So you get something called the bends, which is air pockets in your bloodstream, and it's very dangerous and can kill you. So you have something there to kind of equalize it when you go up and down and stuff. It's yeah, I'm not into diving at all, but it's pretty gruesome. You see the guys thing, and like again, you don't need 50 million guns, tons of bullets, and all that. I mean, you get stuff like in here, but like you say, the kills in here, for the most part, except for the final act kind of shootout, it can be a little dark, a little gruesome. You know, the shark stuff in this, that they don't really hold back on it. I want to back up a minute because there's a few layers in here that you could easily dismiss if you're watching. It's going, yeah, it's just a thing they're doing, but the whole thing with them going like to the Bahamas and going to this place where he, you know, kind of like their base of their front of operations is that you get the casino scene with Bond. It's not early on, and Pam, the pilot that's joining him, the second Bond girl, and all that, absolutely stunning to dress. She captures very sexy. She's got the little gun in her skirt kind of thing that she rips a little bit off of whenever she kind of worms her way into working with Bond on it. And of course, you do get cues showing up, but nothing totally elaborate. But here's the thing: the whole thing about Bond here, what people at the time were really raving about wasn't how good Dalton was or how fleshed out, more human like a revenge story would be in Bond, and how good that could be. And some of the Bondisms having Q show up with the gadgets and stuff like that. It really was about Roberto Davi's performance in here as Sanchez, because Sanchez, you know, you see him and he's not in a rush. He's got the iguana on his shoulder, and this iguana's got like the $1 million worth of diamonds and one like loop around its neck. It's really fucking badass and kind of cool and slick and not slimy in a way. You're like, this guy's different, and he's doing it based off his presentation. He's not maniacal looking. The way he stares Bond straight into his eyes and the way they film it, you're like, he is not just looking at you or talking to you or telling you shit or going, oh, you can understand me, Mr. Bond. No, he's like, no, this is my business. It's not personal. And he's just very sure of himself, and he makes Bond go through the motions of proving himself to it. He's not stupid, and the movie's better off for it. Not because it's in a great place or anything else there, but just because it's realistic. And I don't know. There's a part in here where Bond's trying to get him whacked out, and he's scoping out his place, and he's like, yeah, that glass is an inch thick, because the cocaine, what they're doing is, excuse me, you see on television where you've got Wayne Newton as the front of like this religious, I hate to say cult because we think of bad things, we think of cult, but in the 80s, a lot of television, late night and off hours, is dominated by people from mega churches and religions for donations. And what it is that's the way they're communicating information. I mean, we're talking about old spy information that used to go into like the Wall Street Journal puzzles. A lot of media's or really fronts from the CIA and all that too. And that's just fact. That's not really even defensible. Hollywood's got a lot of propaganda into it ever since their start. I mean, it still has to this day. But they're communicating over the public airwaves. So if somebody buys a donation of blah, 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 that means, hey, I'm really buying this many kilograms of cocaine. And what they're doing is they're taking the cocaine and they're like putting it in the oil and shipping it there so then it can be kind of reprocessed into it. So raw oil, for you nerds out there, you all know, comes out of the ground in different forms, but basically you generally call it petrol. And it's a question of how much you filter it out at different levels and different processes that makes it more expensive. It goes from diesel to utterly refined. Then, of course, you got the whole scam of ethanol being put in there by the farm lobby from way back in the day that ruins your engines. But it's just a reprocessing thing. And you know what? They go through it just enough to explain it where you understand it. And it's not some bullshit, like I say, we need to change the human race and kill everybody involved and repopulate it like we've seen in Moonraker or other things or whatever. It's simple, it's effective, it's a product of the times, and it works. I'm really impressed by how they were able to kind of shift one movie to the next on that. And so really by the time you get to where, you know, he kind of gets sent to his special place, what they call it, Isthmus Republic or something like that. It's supposed to be like,
something like that.
Yeah, like Central America or whatever like that. When Bond wakes up, to your point, and he walks out, this is what a Bond movie should be. A glorious set piece that's showing how tasteful yet rich and disgustingly rich somebody can be. And you see Bond basically out there kind of like, okay, I'm here. And this is probably one of the best scenes in the movie to me, because not only do you have the natural shot of where they shot it, I'm guessing Panama or somewhere down there, Bolivia maybe, I don't know, where you see across the bay and he's sitting outside and he's talking with the abusive lover and all that, and they're sitting down or outside. This is just in the moment, perfect lighting. It's not too glaring where there's 3 lights in their eyes that you can tell all the lights are coming in there. And just the way they're looking at each other, having a conversation, Bond's lighting a cigarette. This is such good acting. I'm like, this is impressive to me. This is very entertaining to me. This is not dull. This is not, oh, when are they going to blow something up or some other stupid shit that Bond movies have devolved into. This whole thing is phenomenal. It sets the stage for what Sanchez is, or as, of course, he likes to say, Sanchez, and him and everything. It shows Bond smoking and just, it's beautiful. Absolutely adoring this. And we're basically 2/3 through the movie.
Yeah. After setting up the one guy to go ahead and Crest. After setting up Crest toothpaste and he explodes, Bond goes back to Sanchez's headquarters, and Lupe is like, "Why did you come back?" After Sanchez goes ahead and tells Bond, "You did a good job. You gave me a good piece of information. I like you. You can come with me tomorrow," because he's going to show some interested Asian businessmen.
The Hong Kong Mafia.
Yeah, the Hong Kong Mafia. The Yakuza? No, that's
Japan.
Going to go ahead and show them their operations and try to get them in on it. And he invites Bond along. So after he leaves, Lupe comes in. "Why would you do this?" "Oh, no. We could get away. After you finish here, you'll take me." And he's trying to say, "I don't think that would work." "How do you know if we don't try?" They share a passionate night. So passionate, she goes the next day and goes to his other girlfriend and says, "Hey, he's in danger. We have to save him." And you can see Q in the background like, "Oh my God, he's laid with this one."
They could have really dove into this whole sexual abusive sort of thing and, the Latin culture and all that, and they kind of don't really do it. But it's the thing about Pam being a pilot and being involved in it is that you don't really see it coming. Usually it's, the field agent that he always has some back history with, that basically he's screwed, never talked to again, has to work with again, or it's the first time, or something dopey or dumb, and it really dumbs him down here. And it's just a dumb excuse, a juvenile one, to have a woman there just for sex appeal, which in itself is not a horrible thing, but it's really old and tired here. And you don't have names like Pussy Galore on here or Miss on the Top or whatever, which, okay, fine if you're going to do it. So again, I like that here. All these businessmen are getting entertained by Sanchez, and so basically the ones that are going to be involved in this giant mega coke deal, they say, okay, we're going to go to our big facility, which is a front. It's the religious front, but it's also where they do the cocaine processing, right? So they have an area where they can do it. So this is just, hey, Scarface 101, right? 102, let's say, because Scarface is before this. So again, it's not like it's some weird thing you're not used to seeing, or all the pieces click like at the end of Moonraker, and you're realizing, hey, every person that he met Bond along his ways ended up being the top level people that were going to repopulate the earth in their image, sort of thing, which was kind of a nice little way of ending. But Moonraker took so long. Here you get everybody going into the processing thing. Pam's in there. Wayne Newton is there too, and of course Wayne's trying to sleep with everybody, because nobody does sleazy like Wayne Newton did back in the 80s. He was tremendous at it, a natural talent. Dankeschön comes to mind. He kind of had a little bit of resurgence in there, but he's just so good as this sleazy pastor thing. And when you do that as a Bond thing, it's not ha that's funny. There's a lot of intentional things that they're doing to kind of make fun of what the time is here. And I don't know. Again, you go, well, this isn't a James Bond movie. There's not this out of the world thing. There's not a great piece of modern art or something that's involved in here. It's just basically a bunch of nobodies as henchmen, and it's a drug deal. Well, right, that's all Bond has to be. It doesn't have to be what it turned into in the movies. Yeah, they basically walk everything through it before there's a big shootout and all that too. But like a lot of Bond movies, they save a lot of the explosions and big shit for the end, which, again, I'm not the biggest fan of or whatever, but I'm gonna
It
stop here
works
and let
here
you catch
though.
a little bit. How so?
How so? So what happens is basically Dario, one of the henchmen, which actually I'm trying to remember where I recognize the actor. He's been in quite a few things. But Dario, one of the henchmen, comes in, recognizes Bond, and he goes to him, pulls out a gun, and what does Bond do? Bond starts a fire, and that's when it all starts falling apart. You have
You're talking
Sanchez.
Benicio del Toro.
Huh?
But it's Benicio del Toro. I think this is his debut.
Yes,
Yes.
that's who it is. Who's had red eyes since then.
Yeah, he's been high on coke since this movie.
But, well, there was a lot in that room, Rob, you know? But after that, Sanchez, like, pushes Bond aside, realizes what he's done, and says, I'm so disappointed in you. They set him up on the conveyor belt to go ahead and get ground up, but he uses his restraints to hang on to the edge, in which Dario comes and starts cutting. Meanwhile, our Bond lady Pam, she was trying to, I guess you could say, seduce the televangelist, but only to a certain point to get away with coming here and then going to save Bond. When she does, Dario gets ground. They go ahead and she pulls Bond up, and they're onto a chase. And you have this like wormy little guy that's with Sanchez saying, "What about all the money? We invested too much. We gotta save it." I don't.
He's the ops guy. You got to have one of those whenever you have a production now that always is whining about something, because that's their job. I mean, he's supposed to find all the flaws, so you, in case something comes up, you already know about it, can address it. But yeah, he's a little wormy bastard.
Yeah, to the point that Sanchez, like halfway through, just, oh, you want your payment? Here you go. Shoots him. There's a chase with some gasoline trucks. And you know I'm not a big fan of car chases usually. I feel like I complain more about the boat chases. But here, it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
For what? Yeah, as far as it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's somewhat believable.
And it ultimately goes to Bond confronting Sanchez. The truck has fallen over. It's leaking everywhere. He's covered from head to toe, but he has a machete, and he has his eye on Bond. But it gets to a point where Bond looks like he's down, and he looks up at Sanchez and says, "Don't you even know why I did it?" And he pulls out the lighter.
Yes. From Felix Leiter.
From Felix Leiter, that's right. The Felix Leiter.
The lighter from Leiter.
There you go. And what does he do? He sets Sanchez on fire. He runs around. Bond runs away. Boom. Explosions. There it is. He goes ahead with Pam, and they have a little party at Sanchez's place, which Lupe has comfortably taken over. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, Bond, after she tries to go ahead and pull him in for a deeper kiss, but he realizes he wants Pam. He goes ahead and for some reason says, "I think you and the El Presidente look good together." And then hops down, pulls Pam into the pool, and they're kissing away as roll credits.
Simple, basic, that's all it is. And by this time, you've probably forgotten about the lighter. But right when he's getting ready to whack him and he says, "Don't you know why I did it?" There's a sense of timing he has that's really great. And I first noticed this as a kid watching Flash Gordon, because it's my first memory that I can recall Timothy Dalton in there, because he plays Prince Barum. I remember he's got the Robin Hood green kind of thing on. And there's like this like scorpion test between him and Flash, because he's rocking his killer mustache, legit. And Flash is the blonde quarterback, New York Jets, one of the best entrances in any movie of all time. And so they're sticking their hand through, and it's supposed to sting you, whatever like that. I thought this was pretty cool. And just the way he would talk, again, Shakespearean trained, they have like a whipping scene or whatever like that. And basically saves Prince Baron's life. And so Timothy Dalton, who's Prince Baron, says, "Where you lead, I follow." And just the way he says it, he's just got this tempo timing. The way this movie's cut, the way he talks and everything, there's no extra speeches, there's no whatever. He doesn't have the greatest sense of humor, but he's not completely dry. He's not sarcastic like that. When he leans into the darker part of Bond, he's got that kind of energy and fire. He doesn't have the physical presence of like a Sean Connery did, or like even Daniel Craig as a modernized version to it. He's just really a back to basics kind of Bond to it, because even here at the party or whatever, I just thought was interesting. You see the sex slave, for lack of a better term, kind of seem to be a bit reformed here, and she's just little things in here, like the way she's dressed. It's classy, but it's elegant and sexy. You've got a great natural just look about to her, just very healthy. It's not too terribly made up looking. Yes, she's got a lot of jewelry, expensive stuff too. She's feeling frisky, and I like how he dives in the water, because Pam's really the Bond girl, right? And she does this thing that it was very difficult to do back in the 70s. America was going through a tough time, a tough decade with economy, prices, devaluation of the dollar. So a lot of films in the 70s, especially with the way films were going, they weren't very positive. And it was only movies like Rocky and a few others that eventually people started getting feel-good films that, RDV, who's another member here of the Xtreme Movie Show that we talk about a lot as an 80s-based channel, where films generally a lot more happier and fun in the 80s instead of being particularly deep or noteworthy. And that's not a problem. That's just a sign of the times. In the 70s, though, you had the sense of America, because you had the 200-year anniversary in 76. You had the Olympics, and then you had Dorothy Hamill, who was an ice skater, and she was really popular, and she popularized this type of haircut that it looks like, to me, Pam's got a version of. Basically, it's the short-haired kind of thing for a woman, and it's hard to do that without looking a little butch. And she just pulls it off here in spades. It's absolutely incredible how she's able to do it. Pat Benatar had a short hair kind of look, and some others too, but it's not an emo kind of look or whatever. But just these women are absolutely stunning. They're very classy. They're very elegant. Again, I call one a sex slave. That's not to demean her, but that was their own movie into it. They just didn't lean into it. They got rid of the money penny bullshit they tried redoing in the second one, because now a different person's doing it. And they just kiss in the pool. They're not in bed humping and saying, hey, they're wrong. Christmas comes twice a year, which is kind of a cool line, but that's a Pierce Brosnan thing. They're true to the people that they have in there. They got great set pieces. The action is really good enough that the airplane scenes, the fighting is the least fun thing to me here. But even still, they didn't do a ton of it in here. It's all about Bond. It's all about Sanchez. It's back to basics. It's a revenge film. And that's all it has to be. You don't need all this other stuff. I say it. Now, I like me some crazy ass shit every now and then, but if it doesn't help the movie, what are you going to watch it for? And I always say this as an example. I think the Mission Impossible movies are very good. I think they've gotten better. I think the Halo jump is an incredible scene. I love the sandstorm scene, climbing the Burj Khalifa in Mission Impossible 4. But what do you really remember about that story other than those really badass scenes? They dominate it and are so good to watch and experience, right? Here is a Bond film. I don't have a particular stunning scene that's making me just not think of the rest of the movie. And that's a danger that you run into. You can have somebody that's too good looking or too ugly or too distracting by the way they dress or act or bad acting or something. And that's not a positive for the movie as a overall as a net whole. Here, I think the most gorgeous scene is when he wakes up in Sanchez's bed, and it's like the loyalty test where they really confront each other, mano a mano, on Sanchez's own terms. It's everything Bond should be. It's a guy thinking on his feet, smoking a cigarette, dealing with the bad guy, and the bad guy not being a complete idiot. You can understand the bad guy. That is perfect filmmaking for what they're doing here. Really dialed down a lot, really back to basics. And I was, at the time, back in the late 80s, was really looking forward to see a lot more of this going on. That would change, and after we do a season 1 of another show sometime later this year, when we go on to the next movie, we'll talk about how that is with GoldenEye and Pierce Brosnan from 1995. Let's talk a little bit about the finishing up for you and some final thoughts you got, sir.
Yeah, no, I loved this movie. I think it's not my favorite. We know my favorite, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think
it is the best one.
Favorite though. Yeah. This is exactly what I want out of a Bond movie. I can't think of a single thing that I really dislike. Like, There are just some things that are perfect, and this is pretty damn near it. I'll admit that I was disappointed by the Living Daylights, even though the more that we talked about it, the more I realized that I did kind of like it, but it was missing something.
Yeah.
This has everything. This is perfection, and it's sad that we don't get any more Timothy Dalton after this now. He finally came into his own, and it ends here. And normally we go ahead and we like do a ranking like we did for we did definitely for crap. Did we do Sean Connery?
Probably.
We did Sean Connery, and then
Roger Moore.
Roger Moore. And now we can't really do one for this. There's a clear winner here. It's License to Kill. I'm really glad we watched this. Like, I got to pull it out of my collection that I told you about. I bought this big. It was only $50, but it collected every Bond except the last one, and nobody needs that last one, so that's fine. And it was beautiful, stunning quality, and stunning quality for a stunning movie. I was winning all day. It's not the best Bond movie, Bankman, because the best Bond movie is On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
It's not the funnest, but I do, as of right now, the way we're talking, I would agree with you. I think we've both had a lot of praise for On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And that's the beautiful thing about Bond. You're 15, 16 films in at this point. You've got a couple different actors. You got different types of films. You've gone from 62 to the late 80s. So you've gone almost a full generation here of lifetime, almost 30 years. So this is kind of extensive. Very few things have lasted that long, despite current tentpole franchise movies, people just trying to make them while they're just because. I think the Bond thing is interesting because there's, like, we always talk about the Bond template, the opening gambit, the song, things we've gotten accustomed to doing. It's a Playboy thing. It's a completely different spy movie. It would still take another 10, 12 years till Jason Bourne came out, kind of changed it, made it more of an action sort of movie rather than a spy movie. And it's an interesting discussion too, because some of the items of interest that RDV and I have talked about when it comes to spy movies, for example, like 3 Days of the Condor, if you're not aware of history in World War II and communism and its effect globally on what's going on and other things, you might be lost in what the plot is or why it may be significant, or government paranoia. And like I mentioned a few minutes ago with the 70s is really the time when you had a lot of unrest socially, where people just weren't, oh, we're going to get married, have a couple kids, live in the suburbs, and live on one salary. And that American fantasy, which actually was a reality, when things got more expensive, the world became more unstable. You had a lot of social unrest, and you had a lot of that going on. The 70s were a time when people, whatever trust they may have seemed to have had about the government being the good guys, whether it's viewing your local police officer or the government and all that, it's completely gone. And it really decayed so much since then. And I don't know that it's ever going to come back. I'm not saying it should or it will or is going to or it's on that track. It certainly is not. But that's one of the things I thought was interesting about here is that you took all the government agencies out of this movie. You let it be about two people. And I will tell you, some people were pissed at this Bond for the fact that it is totally different than the last Bond. So like, well, Mother Flower, you're making it totally different than the last one. At least make it kind of like the first one, but just make it better. And people always think that it's going to get better and better. And that's not true. When they've redone Bond now that we've seen, 4 actors? You had Connery, then you had On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and he was a male
George
model.
Lazenby.
George Lazenby. And he just did a one-off. No matter what you think of him, you think he could have gotten better. But then Bond came back. Oh, wait a minute, who came back? It wasn't just a new Bond. He came back for Diamonds Forever, and so that one sucks. He's not in it at all, in my opinion. But then you get Roger Moore, who was in there the longest, brought a total different element to it. It's fun talking about why these are good or bad and ranking and comparing them, because it really is how do you put your own spin on James Bond? And a lot of people think, well, if the story's not important or you're not trying to message something, then it doesn't really matter what actors you have or what's going on. And I say that's bullshit. A film is visual. You're supposed to see it, and in seeing it, it's supposed to evoke reactions out of you, and you understand it. If you're a Bond connoisseur like we are, like you're becoming by watching and reviewing with me all the James Bond in orders, then we talk about some of these trends, and that's what RDV and I do primarily with other movies. And I think that this Bond gets a bad rap because if you really like Bond, you like grounded reality, you don't like all the over the top bullshit, this is your James Bond. But this pissed a lot of people off. They're like, oh, it's just a Scarface ripoff. It's just dumb drugs and some buffoon from Central America or Kazakhstan who nobody knows where they won't even say. And there's not even communists in this one. And there's no whatever. And Timothy Dalton's just whatever. I'm like, right, that's the point. At this point, though, things are starting to change dramatically. And as we continue on the Xtreme Movie Show and talk about movies from the 80s, 90s and how they're different, we like to point those trends are. So, yeah, RDV's talking about the show about 3 Days of the Condor, how they did a TV show on it. That is true. We've seen some redo of things. We've seen a redo of The Prisoner. We've seen a redo of a lot of things that meant one thing and then they become something else. We've certainly seen it with the Lord of the Rings franchise, tons of other things that are out there owned by a lot of stuff that we don't need to get into. But it's tough because Bond, they really changed a lot over the years, and now it's almost unwatchable.
Also, Venkman, you're wrong because The Living Daylights marks the first appearance of this Miss Moneypenny. She only appears for a second in this one.
Yeah. Well, actually, Amazon just getting the rights to Bond is not old news, RDV. It literally happened the other night because they had the rights to show some of the Bonds, but not all of them. But now Barbara Broccoli and the other person involved actually, I think, retired and gave up full creative control for it. So now Amazon is like the Lord of the Rings, where now they can sit there and say, you know what? We get to cast James Bond. We get to decide who writes it. It's not under the estate, allegedly, any more of it. I've not done a deep dive, but that's what was going on my Twitter and all that too. So that's a shock because I said Barbara Broccoli ruined it when she gained control of it.
Thursday was a couple days ago.
Okay, well, I got done saying it, so it's old because it's 2 seconds old, RDV. I don't really know what you're trying to say there.
See. But I do want to say, with that, Amazon has done some great shows. Like, going ahead, Lord of the Rings definitely isn't one of them. But they've done some great shows, so I fully believe they can get somebody behind Bond that could do a good one, but I don't know if they will. That's the thing. You really?
I don't think so at all. I really don't.
Well, I don't think Barbara Broccoli was keeping it together, especially with that last one. So
well, she did what she wanted to do, and she let Daniel Craig had a lot of creative control in it. So a lot of the blame falls on Daniel Craig's shoulders. And of course, he was the last one. I think it was 5 films. Started off interesting, and then it just went downhill. We'll see what happens because it's already been 5, 6 years, whatever it's been, 4, whatever. It's going to be a couple more. Of course, everybody really honestly, the only person everybody honestly has a consensus about is Henry Cavill, which I could see, and they go, no, Bond's got to be a 5-film commitment. Doesn't have to be now that you've got new people that own the ability to make it. Personally, as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Pierce Brosnan, I would like to. There's a part of me that's wanted to see an old James Bond movie for like a one-off, like what was the Wolverine movie that was rated R, like a Western? Was it Logan or something? Where he's trying to save the kids or something or whatever, and it's really a Western. It just has Wolverine in it or something.
Yeah, no, it was just.
It was really good. I liked it. I wanted to see almost something like that with James Bond, and Pierce Brosnan could pull that off in spades, in my opinion. That would buy them time to get somebody in or find somebody younger. But a lot of people they're casting just don't remind me of Bond. So, again, no matter who you cast, you're going to cast them after you have an idea of how they're going to fit into your vision of Bond. Are you going to include all the diversity, inclusion practices that James Bond has absolutely been known for over this last run with Daniel Craig? I mean, it's not a secret. It's not anything we're disparaging. That's what they chose to do. They've made a crap ton of money. So you could argue whether they're good or bad, but financially successful they are. But they're so prevalent about it that they'd even changed his drink of choice, what cars he drives, all the product placement. They're everything about the vehicle of James Bond, no pun intended, rather than Bond himself. So I think they have the ability to do it. They certainly have the resources. The question is which way is Amazon going to go? Because they've not done a good job at anything, to my knowledge.
I mean, Invincible is great. The Boys is great. There was a show called Hunters, which had Al Pacino. Fan-frickin-tastic.
The Nazi hunters. Like the Boys from Brazil kind of thing, right?
Yeah, the Nazi hunters in the 70s. Yeah. It's a good show. It's a really great show. Reacher, y'all are watching that?
Yeah, but the thing with Reacher is, even though I'm a few episodes in, is that they're picking the books from Reacher where he's using his old team so they could have a nice diverse cast, and rather than the fact that the majority of the books are really just him by himself and just the people in whatever town he comes across and how the story unfolds. So they're deliberately going in a certain order to sit there and say, hey, if we only have a few seasons to go, we're going to make sure we have it where we have a cast of about 4 or 5 other people in it, rather than just relying on Reacher himself. Eventually that gets more expensive to do because everybody's salary escalates, so maybe that's their long-term plan. I can understand them doing it, but I think Amazon's got a chance to really strike a gold mine here. At some point, you accidentally do something right or good, and we'll see if Amazon's attuned to what people have or if they just don't care. Because I tell you, ever since they went to ads, even on their streaming services now, their interface sucks. It's really horrible to find something. They used to be the best at it. As clunky as Netflix is, it's kind of easier to just get on there and browse around and find something. So we'll see. I'm taking a wait and see approach. Certainly. I will just close with this. I think this is a great James Bond film. It's one of the better ones. It has one of the best villains. I think it's held up well. I think the initial scorn by some people, especially back when I saw this live in the 80s, people still loved it. They had a fun time going to it. But a lot of people, just the tone, they go, oh my God, it's dark. It's like, grow the fuck up. Not everything's going to be puppy dogs and ice cream and rainbows and sunshine and all that shit, right? This is, I like it. It's a revenge film. He has a particular set of skills and he's going after it. It's back to basics and it works. Almost every time it does, it works.
Yep. I love it. I'm so glad we watched it, and I look forward to more. But yeah, no, that's...
RDV's just feeling grumpy there in chat, saying Reacher is fucking fantastic. No diversity, wokeness. Yeah, because his crew certainly isn't diverse, right? Or the fact that they're showing his whole crew in these episodes rather than going in order, right? Or the fact that Alan himself has come out and opened his mouth about certain things or like that might piss off a certain percentage of it. No diversity or wokeness there, but I'm sure we'll be talking about some of those things when we get to starting to review Reacher here too. Quit chasing ghosts. Why? Because you're the only one that's allowed to like Ghostbusters, sir? You can't win. You can't win. Yeah. Final thoughts, Pixel.
Final thoughts. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, you are missing out on one of the best Bond films there is. Period.
Now, looking ahead to a few months from now, after we do another season 1 of a show, when we start talking about Pierce Brosnan, boy, it's going to be interesting to talk about that because people love them some GoldenEye, let me tell you, and that's a fact that it's just going to have to get talked about. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, this is Rob here with the Xtreme Movie Show for Professor Pixel and everybody involved. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for showing up tonight. We're getting ready to go live here at 7 o'clock on another stream, the one you guys picked. We went with Stallone's bad movies. Rhinestone, Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. And I think Oscar and Stop or My Mom Will Shoot will be there. So I can understand RDV's distress because I'm already feeling it too, having to talk about that film. But we'll see you there, guys. You picked it out. Anything else, Pixel?
No. This isn't a Dan Curtis production, but it was Bond. James Bond.
Good night now.